Husband brings his pregnant mistress to family dinner, but his black wife reveals documents that shock him. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from today. Um, the big chandelier above the grand ballroom shone like stars in the sky. The shiny floor under it looked like a mirror. It showed the fancy dresses and nice suits of all the people at the party. Everyone moved gracefully. People laughed and softly tapped their champagne glasses. Rich people talked about important things, and the room buzzed with noise. In the middle of it all stood Theo Hawthorne. He was tall and confident. He shook hands with important men whose families had been rich for many years. Next to him stood Camille Harris Hawthorne. She looked beautiful and proud. Her skin glowed like polished wood under the golden lights. She wore a long green dress made of soft silk. It fit her perfectly and made her look even more elegant. Her diamond earrings were small, not too shiny. She always chose things like that on purpose. Camille looked calm and strong. She didn't need to talk much. People noticed her anyway. To people who didn't know them, Camille and Theo seemed like the perfect couple. A rich businessman and his smart, lovely wife. They looked great in magazines and at big events. Their marriage looked modern and full of love. But Camille knew the truth. She felt the way people looked at her when she walked into a room. She saw the way Theo spoke about her like she was interesting, but not smart. People talked about her, not with her. They saw her, but didn't really value her. Theo didn't love her. He loved what she did for his image. She made him look good, like a man who cared about progress. But it wasn't always like that. Camille met Theo when she was young and had big dreams. She wanted to make her own way in the world. Theo had been charming and confident. He made her feel special. He talked about their future like it was a beautiful plan. He said they would build something together, and she believed him. But after they got married, things changed. Slowly, she noticed small things. He stopped including her meetings. He made decisions without asking her. His family treated her nicely, but coldly, like she didn't really belong. Over time, it became clear. His world was his alone. She was just visiting. Camille learned to play her part well. She smiled, nodded, and stayed quiet. People thought she was obedient, but she was really watching and learning. She paid attention to everything about how Theo's company worked. He thought he was teaching her to be quiet, but really, he was showing her how to take control. Now, they were standing at the Hawthorne Industries Gala again. Something felt different. Camille noticed people looking at her for a bit too long. Whispers stopped when she came close. She looked at Theo. He laughed and held his glass. He looked very pleased with himself, like he had a big surprise to share. Then Theo spoke loudly, "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention?" Everyone turned to look at him. He smiled and raised his glass. "Tonight I have some wonderful news. Legacy is very important to us. Our families and traditions help us grow, so I am happy to share that soon. I will welcome a new heir into the Hawthorne family." For a moment, Camille didn't understand. Then she saw a woman standing nearby. She was young and beautiful, wearing a shiny silver dress. Her name was Alara Montgomery. Camille had seen her before, hanging around Theo's world. Alara looked very pregnant. The room went silent. Everyone looked at Camille and then at Theo. They waited for Camille to cry or walk out, maybe even throw her drink at him. But Camille didn't do any of that. She took a breath and walked toward Alara. She smiled and said, "Congratulations. You must be very happy." Alara looked surprised and slowly shook Camille's hand. Theo's smile dropped a little. Camille looked Alara in the eyes for a moment, then turned and walked away. She moved with grace and calm. She could feel everyone whispering behind her. Let them whisper, she thought. She had played the perfect wife for 12 years. She was done playing. Theo thought he had taken everything from her, but he didn't know the truth. Camille had been ready for this moment. She knew something he didn't. It was never his empire. It was always hers. The ride home was quiet. Camille sat in the back seat of the black car. Her hands were in her lap, her face calm. City lights flashed outside. Theo sat next to her, tapping his knee. He hadn't said a word since they left the party. In his mind, everything was finished. He had made his big announcement. Now Camille would disappear quietly with money and never be heard from again. He looked at her, waiting for her to cry or yell. But Camille said nothing. She had learned to stay calm. When the car stopped at their big house, the driver opened the door. Camille stepped out and walked up the marble steps. The house was huge and fancy. It was built to make people feel small. Camille used to be impressed by it. Now she saw it as a pretty prison. Theo followed her inside. The lights were low and shadows danced on the floor. "That went well, don't you think?" Theo said, trying to sound cheerful. Camille turned to him. She didn't smile. "You're quiet," he said. She tilted her head. "What is there to say?" Theo looked at her closely, trying to find some sign that she was upset. He couldn't find any. He sighed, took off his jacket, and said softly, "You don't have to pretend. I know this is hard for you. I want to make it easy. I'll be generous. You'll be well taken care of." Camille took a deep breath. He was trying to erase everything they had been through, like it didn't matter. He had done it before in small ways. But this was bigger. He thought she hadn't seen it coming. But she had. She looked up the stairs. That bedroom used to be theirs. But now she stayed in the east wing. They both pretended not to notice. "I think I'll sleep in my own room tonight," she said. Theo's smile faded a little, but he nodded. "Of course." Camille walked up the stairs calmly. In her room, she locked the door. She went to the old writing desk by the window. The city lights twinkled outside. She opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a small leather folder. Inside were papers. She touched the pages and looked at the signatures. These papers had been given to her 12 years ago, back when Theo had no idea who she really was. Back before he understood what kind of woman he had married. Camille still remembered the day when Mr. Cap, Richard Hawthorne, called her to his office. He was an old man, but still strong and smart, like a powerful storm. He sat behind a big wooden desk and looked at her carefully. His hands rested on a cane he didn't need to walk, but he carried it because it showed his power. "Theo is my son," he said, "but he is not the man you think he is." Camille sat very still, waiting quietly. "He is proud and careless," Richard said. "I built this company all by myself, and I don't want him to break it with his bad choices." Back then, Camille didn't know why he was telling her all this. She thought maybe he didn't like that she married Theo. She thought he was warning her to stay away. But then Richard pushed some papers toward her. "You will be in charge," he said. "Not Theo, not until I know he's ready. And if that day never comes—" He stopped and looked right into her eyes. "Then it will be your job to protect it." Camille didn't fully understand it then, but she took the papers, signed them, and locked them in a safe where Theo could never find them. Now, as she touched the papers again, she finally understood what Richard Hawthorne had seen years ago. He knew that Theo would fail. He knew his son would ruin things, and he had trusted Camille to stop it. She closed the folder and took a deep breath. The weight of everything felt heavy, but not like a bad thing. It felt strong and sure. Theo thought he had won last night. He thought he had tricked her and taken everything, but he didn't know he had already lost. Camille stood up from the desk and smoothed her pretty dress. The night wasn't over. She had a lot to do. The next morning, Camille woke up very early. The city outside her window was still quiet. The big buildings stood tall in the soft glow of the streetlights. Everyone was still asleep. She sat at her mirror, brushing her hair slowly. Her face looked calm and peaceful. She had trained herself to always look that way, even when she felt upset inside. Everything had changed the night before. Theo thought he had beaten her with his big announcement. He thought he had pushed her into a small space where she had no choice but to say yes to him. He thought she would cry, yell, or disappear like a forgotten person in his story. But what Theo didn't know was that the game was never his. It had always been hers. She got dressed in a quiet, dark blue dress that looked like the evening sky. It was simple and beautiful. She walked through the big house quietly, like someone who knew all the secret paths. The house never truly felt like hers, but she had studied it. She knew where the walls hid sounds and where the floors creaked when someone walked. Theo was still sleeping when she passed his bedroom. She stopped for just a second, listening to his slow breathing. Then she went downstairs. She sat in a big leather chair that once belonged to Mr. Richard Hawthorne. The room smelled like old books and shiny wood. It made her feel strong. She opened the desk drawer and took out the same folder from the night before. She flipped through the papers quickly because she already knew what they said. Theo's downfall had already started, he just didn't know it yet. Her first phone call was to her lawyer, Elliot Ford. She had kept him ready for many years, waiting for this moment. His voice sounded awake and ready, like he was expecting her call. "It's time," she said. Then the sound of papers moving. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Let's do it." "I'll get everything ready in an hour," he said. She ended the call and closed her eyes for a second. She felt a quiet excitement in her chest. Then she made her second call. This one was to Daniel Whitmore, the man who watched the money at Hawthorne Industries. "Mrs. Hawthorne," he said carefully. He sounded surprised. She didn't usually call him herself. She could tell he already knew something was wrong. "I have some papers I need you to check," she said. "I'll send them soon. They're about the money problems in the company's secret accounts." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "I see." She heard the worry in his voice. He had always been on Theo's side, or maybe just on the Hawthorne family side. But now he had to choose. "Daniel," she said seriously, "you need to be very clear. I'm not asking, I'm telling you. I'm the one in charge of Hawthorne Industries now. You will check the papers, you will tell the truth, and when it's time, you will show everything to the company's board." There was a pause, then a small breath. "Understood," he said. She hung up and let herself feel a little proud. The final fight would be at the board meeting, but her plan had already started. The pieces were moving. When the sun was high in the sky, the house came alive. People started walking around. Camille moved through the rooms calmly, saying hello to the staff. She smiled and took a warm cup of tea from the housekeeper, who knew just how she liked it. Theo didn't come out of his room until almost noon. He walked into the dining room like he owned the world. He wore a clean white shirt and his shiny cufflinks sparkled in the sunlight. He looked like a powerful man. "Morning," he said as he poured himself some coffee. "You left early." "I had some business to do," Camille said as she took a sip of her tea. "Business?" Theo asked, raising his eyebrow. She placed her teacup down and looked right at him. "Yes, business." Something in her voice made Theo squeeze his cup tighter. "You don't have to act like this," he said. "I know last night was hard for you, but really, Camille, I'm helping you. This doesn't have to be hard. We can be nice about it." She gave him a small smile, calm and cool. "Nice?" she said. Theo sat across from her, watching her closely. "I've already talked to my lawyers," he said. "They'll talk to you about the settlement. It's very generous." "Generous?" she asked, tilting her head. He sighed like she didn't understand. "Camille, don't make this messy. We both knew this would happen." "This was bound to happen?" she asked quietly. Theo leaned back, thinking he was in control. "I know you, Camille," he said. "You won't make a scene. You're smart. You'll take the money, keep your pride, and walk away." Camille looked at him for a long time. He was so sure that he had already won. She let the silence grow until he felt too comfortable. Then, in a soft voice, she said, "I'm not taking your settlement." Theo blinked. His hand stopped moving on the coffee cup. "What did you say?" "I'm not taking your settlement," she said again. "Because I'm not leaving, Theo. You are. The color in his face drained, his jaw clenched, then he laughed. Camille, I don't know what silly game you're playing. It's not a game, she said, still calm. It's real. This morning, the board learned about your bad money moves. Every wrong transfer, every time you took money for yourself. It's all written down. It's been checked. It will be shown at the emergency board meeting. The proud look in his eyes changed for a second. I'm in charge of Hawthorne Industries, not you, she said. And starting tomorrow, you won't be CEO anymore. Theo stood up fast, his chair scraping loudly. You don't know what you're doing, he shouted. Camille looked up at him, as that not scared at all. No, Theo, I've known exactly what I was doing for 12 years. The room became quiet. For the first time ever, Theo Hawthorne looked truly afraid. The morning of the emergency board meeting was cool and bright. The sky over the city was a bright blue and seemed to go on forever. Tall buildings made of glass and steel reached up toward the clouds. Inside one of those buildings, Camille stood by a big window in her private room. She held a warm cup of coffee in her hands and looked down at the world below. From up here, the people on the street looked tiny, like little moving shadows. They seemed so small compared to the big company she was about to lead. Suddenly, Camille felt something change. She knew right away. Theo had woken up. Even though they were in different parts of the big Hawthorne house, she could feel it. The house felt different. The workers moved more carefully, as if they were afraid something big was about to happen. Theo hadn't talked to her since yesterday morning. That was when she had told him something he never thought possible, that she was the one with the real power, not him. She had always had it, and now she was ready to show everyone. The board meeting was set for 9 o'clock. At 8:45, Camille walked down the grand marble stairs slowly and confidently. She looked calm, like someone who already knew she was going to win. She heard Theo talking in his office. His voice was low and fast. He was on the phone asking all his friends for help. He still believed he could stop what was going to happen, but Camille didn't stop to listen. It didn't matter anymore. Outside, a shiny black car was waiting for her. The car sparkled in the morning sun and reflected the giant Hawthorne house behind her. The driver opened the door, and Camille sat down on the cool leather seat. She looked back at the house one last time. She had lived there for more than 10 years. Theo thought it would always belong to him, but it wasn't the house she would miss. It was the dream she once had of it becoming a real home. The Hawthorne Industries building was tall and shiny. It looked powerful, like it could touch the sky. The top floor had a huge room where the board members met. The room had dark wooden walls and big paintings of past leaders of the company. Camille had been in that room many times before, but always as Theo's wife. She had never been part of the meeting, only someone sitting quietly beside him. But today was different. Today, everything would change. She walked in, her high heels clicking softly on the shiny floor. The men at the table looked up at her. Some had worked with Theo's father, Richard Hawthorne. Others had been chosen by Theo, but none of them had ever thought Camille could be a leader. They were wrong. Theo was already there, sitting at the head of the long table. He looked perfect, with his neat suit and tidy hair. But Camille saw that he was nervous. He had been trying to stop this from happening for a whole day, using every trick he knew. But now, he had no tricks left. Camille, he said in a calm voice, you're early. She walked to the other end of the table, to the seat saved for the most important board member. She took her time, placing her papers on the table and adjusting her silk blouse. I like to be prepared, she said. Some of the men in the room looked at each other. Some looked uncomfortable. They had seen the papers. They knew what was coming. The chairman, Harold Archer, cleared his throat. He was an old friend of Richard Hawthorne and was known for making smart choices, not emotional ones. Today, Theo was not the smart choice. We have a lot to talk about today, Harold said as he looked at the papers Camille had given him. Mrs. Hawthorne has found some strange money transfers that we must look at right away. Theo let out a loud breath and shook his head. This is nonsense. We're not going to waste time on false accusations. Camille raised one eyebrow. False, she said. Theo's jaw tightened. He tried to smile. Camille, whatever you think you found, it's a mistake. She calmly opened her folder and slid the first paper toward Harold. This is the first secret money transfer. It happened 6 months ago. It was hidden as an investment. Harold looked at the paper carefully. His face didn't change, but Camille saw his fingers tighten around the page. She handed him another paper. This one was from 3 months ago, she said. Another fake investment. The money never came back. She kept handing over papers. Each one showed proof. Theo's calm look began to fall apart. This is crazy, he shouted, pushing his chair back. These are normal transfers. They're legal. If you understood how the company works, you'd know that. Camille tilted her head and looked at him. Normal? She asked. Then she looked at Harold. Mr. Archer, can you tell me why the board never knew about these so-called normal transfers? Harold set the papers down and looked at Theo. Yes, I would like to know that too. The room went quiet. Theo's hands turned into fists. This is a takeover, he said angrily. She's tricking you. She doesn't belong here, and you all know it. Camille smiled. It was slow and calm. I belong here more than you ever did, she said. Theo started breathing hard. You think you can take this from me? You think the board will choose you instead of me? I don't think, Camille said softly. I know. Harold cleared his throat again and looked at Camille with something like respect. Our legal team has looked at the company rules, he said. It looks like Mrs. Bad Hawthorne is right. She has control through a trust Richard Hawthorne set up. Theo went completely still. Harold turned to the board. With the evidence we've seen, I suggest we vote now to remove Theo Hawthorne as the CEO of Hawthorne Industries. Someone agreed. The vote was taken. Everyone voted yes. Theo took a step back, breathing fast. You can't do this, he said. Camille stood up and gathered her papers quickly and smoothly. It's already done, she said. She walked past Theo. The whole room felt heavy, filled with the truth of what had just happened. Theo had always believed power was his because of his name. He thought no one could ever take it away. But today he learned something important. Power isn't something you're given. It's something you take. And today, Camille took it. Today, Camille learned something important. Power is not given to you. You have to take it. The sound of the boardroom meeting still echoed in her ears as she stepped into the quiet of her private office. The walls of glass showed a beautiful view of the city far beyond the big company she worked at. It was more than just a view. It was a sign of her new control. The man she had just replaced had no idea what was coming. She gently put her portfolio on her desk, her fingers softly touching the smooth leather. For a moment, she allowed herself to be still. She had waited a long time for this, worked hard for it. Now, the company was hers. There was a knock at the door. She already knew who it was. Harold Archer, an important man who had worked with the company for many years, stepped inside. He had worked with the previous CEO, Richard Hawthorne, and had seen many changes in the company. He wasn't someone who followed orders just because they were given, but he respected Camille. You handled yourself well, Harold said as he closed the door behind him. Camille smiled a little and asked, Did you expect anything else? Harold smiled back, but it was clear he was still thinking about what had just happened. I thought Theo would fight harder for it, he said. Camille nodded. He still might, she said, but it's done for now. Harold agreed. The official change will take time, but the board has made its decision. Camille looked at him and said, The vote is in my favor. She didn't say much more. Harold, seeing the way she was, leaned against her desk. I knew Richard didn't trust his son, he said, but I didn't think he trusted you either. Camille didn't respond right away. She knew Theo had made mistakes, but she wasn't interested in hearing his regrets. What's next? Harold asked. Camille looked at the papers on her desk. We rebuild, she said. Theo's actions have hurt this company more than anyone knows. We have to earn back the trust of the workers, the market, and the investors. Harold nodded. There will be people who don't like this, he said. Camille just nodded. I expect that, she said calmly. Harold stood up and said, I'll leave you to it. As he left, Camille took a deep breath. The responsibility was big, but she had earned it. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her lawyer, Elliot Ford. Theo wants to meet in private, it said. Camille typed back one word, fine. She already knew the meeting would happen. She chose a quiet lounge in the Hawthorne Tower that's far away from the busy offices. When she got there, Theo was already waiting. He looked different. His face was tight, his body stiff. He seemed like a man who was realizing just how much he had lost. Camille sat across from him, waiting quietly. Theo spoke first, his voice sharp. You think you've won? Camille raised an eyebrow. Haven't I? She asked calmly. Theo clenched his fists on the table. You don't belong here, he said. Camille smiled slowly and said, and yet, here I am. Theo leaned forward. His voice dropped low. You don't know what this company is. You don't know what it takes to run it. Camille responded quickly. You mean I don't know what it takes to destroy it, right? Theo's jaw clenched tightly, but Camille wasn't done. That's exactly what you were doing. Theo's face turned hard. This is personal for you, he said. Camille shook her head. No, she said firmly. This is business. You made it personal when you tried to get rid of me. There was silence between them for a moment. I'll fight this, Theo said finally. Camille just nodded as if she was thinking about it. You could try, she said, but you won't win. Theo laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. You think I don't have allies? He asked. I think you overestimate them, Camille answered. Just like you overestimated yourself. Theo's face darkened. What do you want from me? He asked. Camille thought for a moment. I want you gone, she said firmly. You'll keep your personal things, your properties, and what you earned before you started breaking the law, but you'll leave Hawthorne Industries for good. Theo leaned back in his chair and sighed. And if I refuse? He asked. Camille leaned forward, her voice calm. Then you lose everything? She said. Theo's eyes narrowed. Meaning? He asked. Camille was clear. I will make sure everything you did wrong comes out. The police will find out about your bad actions. The Hawthorne name won't just be ruined, it will be criminal. Theo's hands tightened on the table, but Camille didn't look away. You have 1 day to decide, she said. Theo's jaw was clenched, but for the first time, he didn't have the power. Camille stood up, smoothed her blouse, and said, I'll expect your answer by tomorrow. When she returned to her office, news was already spreading. A press release had gone out. Camille Hawthorne was now the CEO of Hawthorne Industries. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Alara Montgomery, someone Camille wasn't sure she wanted to hear from. I need to talk to you. Please, the message said. Camille paused, then typed back, come to my office. When Alara arrived, she looked different. She didn't seem as confident as she once did. She seemed unsure, even though she was still wearing the clothes and jewelry from her old life with Theo. I don't expect you to forgive me, Alara said quietly. Camille just looked at her, studying her. Alara looked nervous, but then she nodded. I didn't know about any of it. About the company, she said. Camille sighed. And now? She asked. Alara looked at her, her voice shaking a little. Now, I want to make sure my child doesn't grow up believing the same lies I did. Camille's gaze softened slightly. Then you already know what you have to do, she said. Alara nodded, hugging herself. He'll never forgive me, she said. Camille just shook her head. He doesn't have to, she said calmly. Alara straightened up. Thank you for listening, she said. Camille gave a small nod. Be careful, she warned. As Alara left, Camille looked out at the city again. Theo was gone, the company was hers, and this was only the beginning. Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Check out our other videos too. See you in the next one.